Hello, this is Max Drake. I want to talk to you about this process. So I'll demonstrate the process first of all. This is an email that's come in from my person from Power, who my retailer for my electricity. They're sending me an email daily with an attachment here which has the data of my latest meter reading. So I'm just going to run this one here and run now. And you see it's turned a funny color, and that's all. But if we go into my inbox through here, it's come through into my Gmail account. So it's come from a Hotmail into my Gmail account. I manually did that, but I'll talk about it later. Now, when it's actually into here, I'll now run this script, and it will now go through, connect into my Gmail account, find that attachment, and download it into this folder through here. So there will be one in here called, I just refreshed at that point in time, maxdrake.hrccv. It's now going to rename that file. So if I refresh that again, you'll see that it's now been renamed. Oops, might have been double renamed here. It should have been renamed, and then finally it renames it a third time, a second time, and deletes the previous one through there. The next part of the process, which I would actually run from there, would be to take that information there and upload it to my database on my server. So on my server, I've got my database with all of this information in there. So let me just explain what's happening through here, and I've got to kind of go back through a little bit of a backstory. So I did some original Python scripts where I actually created some data, or I created some images, I put them into a PDF file, and then I attached it to an email and sent it to myself. So that actually was triggered daily using the task scheduler. This one is in reverse. Somebody's sending me an email with an attachment. I want to take the information from that attachment and go and put it up into a server. So it's a bit like an API call, but they are actually just sending me attachments. So in some ways it's playing with the email process of being able to get emails and manipulating them and doing them. Now a few things, so the further backstory on this is if we look at this information through here, so this is the wholesale information trading system. So the retailers are paying on are purchasing power on the share market, New Zealand share market, for amount of power. So that's the green line of what they've actually purchased, and this is the orangey limey ones, yellowy limey ones are the ones of actually how much the customers are using through this particular substation that we're actually coming through. So this is the actual usage against what was predicted. So this is what the retailer's done. So because there's all of this mad activity going on, if we actually look at the data coming through from there, so that's not the one, the energy that's coming through, you'll see all of these say 1205, but you can actually see there's 4 different numbers. So it's jumping around like that, and that's within a 5-minute interval. So the way that they do this, and they confirm the price, so they bought the price, they bought the power, or a certain quantity of power at a certain price, and then the users are consuming it, and because of there's a lot more demand, so the price is going up with all of that. They've actually got to finalize the price. So if we just look on this which one through here, you'll see there's this one which actually says final, but the final isn't calculated until quite a few hours afterwards. So if we go to the Electricity Authority, they have the final prices. Now I think the final prices are actually calculated the next day. So they've allowed for a day of volatility, and then all of those 5-minute intervals or whatever, they collated them into half-hour intervals and averaged them out. So they get the average price, which they then say to the retail suppliers this is how much you owe us, this is how much you did, so you've already bought so much at this date, so you've got to give us the difference or whatever. And then the retailer will go and change that on. So that's the pricing system. So the final price isn't figured out until the next day of actually what the usage is. From that point of view, I've got on my house smart meter sitting here. So this is a smart meter here, and I said to my retailer, hey, if that's a smart meter, why can't I read the data on it? And he said, well, actually we can't even read the data on it. The people who supply the power, they're the ones who are actually getting the meter reading and all that live data. So the people who are the suppliers are getting the data. They then sell that information, or they charge the retailers that information of how much each of the consumers use through their meter box, and they give it to them. And anyway, my power for the people very generously said, oh, well, we can give you your data. So they gave me my data, and they gave me all of my historical data. Control Z. They gave me all of my data way back to when I first started with them through here. And the other thing that this one here has, so this is the original data, and then he's given me updates daily all the way through. So it's the update emails that I'm trying to update my database to get the new one. Now with the information, it's got a couple of odd things on here. For the date, it's got this number. The second thing that it's got is that the midnight reading, this midnight reading is based on the midnight, so the meter reading from the day before, plus the number of units of kilowatt hours that I've used to give this day's one. So therefore it needs yesterday's reading of the meter, and then it needs today's units to be able to sum up to give the day's meter reading for the end of the day. So when I get my email coming in, which comes in this format here, it doesn't have the meter reading on it. It just has how many units I've consumed for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, or in a 5-day interval, let's just say. So that's the information that I've got to begin with. So I thought, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go and stick this up in a database and a table, and so that I can actually start doing some graphics with it later. So the first thing I come across is this one here for a date. Now, if I just click onto this, I hadn't come across this one here before, but if I click onto this and go into short date, you see it actually converts that number, which is just a single number, into an actual full date time, or sorry, a date, not a date time. So in some ways, this is like the Unix time, or the epoch time, whatever you want to call it. With the epoch time, you have a datum, and the datum is the 1st of January 1970, and it's a number of seconds from there. Now, what that means is that you can get the number of seconds from there to now, so whatever the second time now, we can go and look that up, and that's in one unit, it's in the unit of seconds, but we can then do it through a little function, and we can split that seconds into years, months, days, hours, minutes and seconds. So we can split it into 6 separate units. This thing here does the same thing, but it does it with days, months and years. So it doesn't bother with the hours and things. So we're actually working in a day format here. Now the datum for this is the 1st of January 1900. So this is the number of days from the 1st of January 1900, and then Excel has a little formula in there that actually just converts it, so it can give you the actual date through there. So he very generously gave me all this information. So the 1st of the 10th 2020, when I first started, and it's my weekly ones going through. Sorry, this is daily coming through. Now it goes through and it gives me half an hour intervals. Now I've hidden the ones in between here, so I've got 6 to 44, but basically it's a half hour intervals through the day. So instead of 24, I've got 48 half hour intervals. So that is the price based on the half hour intervals, and then we sum them all up just to get my total units that I've used throughout the whole day. And then I get my latest meter reading by blah, blah, blah. So I can figure out when the peak times are. So this is another thing that's inside of the machinations and the calculations, is that they charge you more for when you're using power in the peak times, and the peak times are from 7 to 11 and from 5 till 9 in the evening. So when people are getting up to go to work and when people are coming home from work and cooking tea. So those are things. So they're going to charge you more to try and discourage you, to try and get you to use as much power outside those times so that you're getting your evenness coming through. So I've got that data, then I'm getting my daily data coming through. So this is the daily data that I'm getting in my email. So I've got to get that. So this is the email attachment that's coming through. So I've then got to take this and then somehow push this information up into my database. So I've got a couple of issues here straight away. The account that I use for getting the email coming is in fact a Hotmail one. But the one that I actually use to actually do anything programmatically with is a Gmail account, because you need a you need a special app password, because your main password, if you just use your normal name and password that you use just to log into your Gmail and things like that, that's got the two-factor authentication at the front, so it blocks you if you try and do it programmatically. So what they do instead is that they actually have an app password where you can actually set your own, and they generate one through this little piece of information here that you keep, and you use that, and that'll allow you to log in. So it's a different password than what you can do. So I'll send a link to, I'll put this link in the data that I have that I'll add through. So the first thing that I need to do is to actually take my email that's come in from into my Gmail account or my Outlook account, and I need to move it across or forward it to my Gmail account. So I've got it in a Hotmail or Outlook, and I've got to move it into the Gmail. So when I suddenly looked on this Outlook, I found that, so this is Outlook.Live, Outlook.Live.com. So you can go in and you can just log in on your web browser, and you can get all your emails through there. But there was all these apps on the side there, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And one that came through was Power Automate. And I thought, oh, cool, I'll play with Power Automate and get this to do a little part of the automation to actually just get some things through here. So if we go into the template, we can search the template and we can just type email. And I think I did email attachment. And let's see what comes through there. So what we can do is we can save our Outlook.com email attachments to your OneDrive. We can also save it to your Dropbox, and I think further down somewhere here it'll actually save it to your Gmail Gmail drive, your G drive or whatever. So this is the ones for the Outlook.com email. So there's those, and then there's these Office 365 email ones. So that's something different. But it didn't have. Oh, here you are. So you can save your email attachments to your Google Drive. So that's just putting it into a different cloud. Now all I wanted to do was two things. I either wanted to download the attachment into a folder straight away, so the email comes in on my Hotmail, and I just suddenly say, well, okay, then save the attachment to a folder. But it's saying, yeah, well, let you save to OneDrive or to Dropbox or to Google Drive or whatever, but we won't let you save it to a folder. So that's a bit of a nuisance. So I suddenly thought, well, okay, then in which case what we can do, email forward. And then when we come into here, we've got all these ones, send OneDrive files to an email. And a lot of this is, a lot of them say kind of forward emails to a channel, forward it into things. But it doesn't actually just say forward to a different account. When I looked at this, and for the things that I wanted to do, all of the things and all of the connectors and the stuff, like saving to a file, that was a premium account. Forwarding an email to a different email was also a premium. So I was suddenly thinking, well, you're absolutely useless. So I suddenly thought, well, okay then, we'll flag using Power Automate. Now I would have liked to have actually got a couple of wee little things on Power Automate that would work, but overall I was disappointed. So I then stepped through and I went into my Thunderbird. Now I actually have Thunderbird to actually manage all of my different email accounts that I actually have. And so inside of Thunderbird, it's got a thing called a message filters. So these ones here, if we just look at this one here that we actually ran before, and I've just called it message filters, you can actually match all of the following emails. So when an email comes in, and this is saying we're going to do it automatically if I didn't have it manually run, and it's going to filter before it meets the junk classification. So as that email comes in, before it's classified whether it's junk or not, we're going to read it and we're saying, well, does it come from this one here? So we've got a from. So we can have a whole lot of criteria that we can set down here about it, you know, of the body or date or things or something to do with the status of the size. So there's a whole lot of criteria that we can do, but I've got to add two criteria. Who's it from, and does it contain this code in the subject? And it does. So as soon as that one comes in, we said, well, okay then, what actions do you want to do? Well, the first thing that I want to do is I actually want to forward that message to my Gmail account. And then the next thing I want to do is just tag the message as later. So that means it's just going to say what that tag in the message, it just makes it purple so that it stands out or doesn't stand out, as the case may be. So you'll see that that's what happened when we did it afterwards. I then got a second process through here that I ended up doing because I wanted to do it later, was to move all of those ones, if we just edit that one there, was anything that contained this in the header, move it to a different folder. So I could run that one manually and it would move it into a folder called later. So you can see there's a couple of purple ones through there that have already been sent through. So I got a little bit of an automation in there. The email would come in because Thunderbird is a desktop app. It belongs to this PC. So if this PC is on at 10 o'clock when that email comes in each day, it will then just forward that email straight away to Gmail. But I turn my PCs off at night, and so this I might be here at 10 o'clock or I might be here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something. So it's not necessarily that I'm going to have that. So I wasn't happy with that solution at that point in time. So when I first had the crack at Power Automate, what I was trying to do was detach the attachment. So I then suddenly thought, well, I'll go back to Power Automate and see if I can actually just forward the thing through. And I couldn't forward the thing through, but what I found was in my Outlook account, I had this thing called rules. So this has got one called manage rules, and if we just look at this one here says if this email comes in from this and it has this in the header, move it, go forward it to here and move it into the later folder and give it a purple category. And that's what it does. So as soon as it comes in to my Outlook.Live, which is in the cloud and active 24 hours a day, as soon as it comes into there, it's triggered and it forwards it to my Gmail account, and then it moves across. Now, there could have been a simpler way. I could have actually just gone back to the supplier from Power and just said, no, don't send it to my Hotmail address, send it to this account. But I thought, no, I actually quite like the complexity just to see how I could work through those sorts of things as an added part of an automation. So it's gone to somewhere else, but I need it somewhere else. So when I've actually got it into my Gmail account, I can then use my automated login with Python and go into that email account and detach that. I can now detach the attachment into my folder, which it does do. So it comes into here and it puts it into here straight away. So it puts the Max Drake HHD whatever thing into here, and as soon as it comes into here, what does it do straight away? So first of all, it pulls it and drops it into here. The next thing it does is it renames it. Otherwise, it's just going to overwrite the one before. So it takes that file and it puts the today's date on the front of it. So each one has the day's date, not with the underscore in front of it. So it does the first part of renaming it just to make sure that we're not overwriting the same file all the time. We're giving it a unique identifier for each daily once. So once we brought it into here, we can then start doing some things with it. So what we can actually do with that, first of all, so we actually come through, we detach it, we bring it into here, we rename it, and then the other thing that we do is that we now have that email sitting in our Gmail account. Now, one of the things that I found when I'm in my Gmail account, when I first ran this script that I did, which was actually just taking the email and detaching it, the way that it does it, or the way that I got the code to work at the beginning, and in my old scripts, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 7, which is the one I've got. Plus, I tried these other ones. So I tried about 9 methods before I got one that worked. And this one only identifies the email by where it's from. So it's actually only finding that email by that point in time. So because it's only finding it from the from person, initially I had about 100 emails from that particular, from my other email, from my Hotmail address, because I'd be sending myself, I'd see an article online and I'd be sending it from my Hotmail account to my Gmail. So I had to clear all of those out so that there was only one file coming in from there. Now, I can most probably do further research so that I can actually identify the from and also the subject, so that I can be a lot more focused with what it was. But as it was, it just jammed up. I just wanted something to work. So I got that in there. It came through. So once I actually cleared out all of those other ones, I'd only actually have one file in my Gmail inbox which actually had that name in there. But I didn't want it in there the next day, so I needed to move it out of there. But for a Gmail, when you're programmatically doing, you can't just suddenly, like it here, I can actually, if we're going to demonstrate that one there again, I can drag that and I can go and put it into the inbox. So now, if we just go back into the inbox there, we'll see, it'll appear in a second. Oh, there it is. I might just make it red there. So I didn't want this one. I didn't want a whole lot of files from the same thing with a whole lot of attachments, so I'd be trying to undo all the attachments. So once it's actually got there, the second part of the script relogs back in again on my Gmail, and it takes that file and it copies it to my Power folder, and then it deletes the file. Gmail doesn't do a move. It does a copy and delete. So that's what it does through there. So that's what the second part of the process goes through. So after doing that, it does the connection, comes through, does all of that, then it goes out. The second part is to copy the message into the Power and the thing, and then it sponges it and goes through that. Then the third part that actually goes through is that we actually have the attachment. We rename the attachment from the first file into the new file, and it's renamed to that. And then the last thing that we do is that we need to go and find the meter reading, the cumulative meter reading from the day before. So what we do is we go and get but when we brought that file in, so I'm just going to go into a data file and drag one of these across. So it's into there. So if we look at this particular file through here, you see when we actually download that file, and even though we rename it, it's got 5 rows of data, but we actually only want the latest row of data. So we only want the other one, so we need to delete 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of data straight away. We also need to modify our date column from the number of days from the 1st of 1900, and we've got to convert that into a date column. We've got to delete that old date column because we don't need it anymore, and then we've got to add a meter column in there as well. So there's a little bit of manipulation of the data that we need to do, and since we're actually in a CSV file sort of a format, so a data frame's great, so we should just use Pandas. So that's what we do. So once we get it into there, we manipulate it. So the first thing that we do is, because we know when we're sending up, so we've got to reformat it into this sort of thing. so that we only have one line of data. We actually get the meter reading name at the end, and we also have on this one, we have the date in the proper format. So that's what we need. And then the other one, which actually had that date time, we could just get rid of that. So that's the next part of the process that I ended up doing. So I ended up automating all of those, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get that file set up so that we can then go and push it up into the database. So I just take the day before, because the day before has got the meter reading already calculated and done, wherever that is. Where's my meter reading through there? We've got the meter reading from here. We can grab it from the file before. So when we go into the file through here, down at the bottom, we go and read the day before file. So if we're working on the 19th, I go and read the file from the 18th, which has got the underscore one here through here. I go and get that one there, and I get the midnight value. So I get the value of the meter at that point in time, and I just hold it in there. I've got it here to print, just so that we can actually check and see what it is at the bottom. And then I come in, and then I read the main file, or today's file, which is the one which would be this one here, except it would be dated 20306 19th. We take that one there, and we do some date manipulation. So first of all, we convert the date. So we get the read-find date, and we used a date function. So we're actually applying a lambda function to that read date through there. The next thing that we do is we get the midnight from the file which we got before, the variable through there, and we add it to our units. So the number of units that we've got on the late one through there. We then just make sure it's rounded to 2 decimal places, just because it can be a bit messy. We drop the read by date, which has got just a single number through there, and then we export that CSV. And we export it with an underscore at the beginning, just so to differentiate it from the other one that we've got. And then I just delete this file, which is from the day before. Oh, sorry, from the day, because we've now got the new one that we want. So that's the process that we do. So if we just delete that one there, and we'll just delete that there, and we just run that one there again, just check to see that I've got that email in my, so I'm in my inbox through there. So if I now run that one again, Control Shift Run, that should all run quite nicely. So it's connecting, it's logging in, it's going to the inbox, it's getting the attachment, and if we just refresh that, you'll see there's the name of the attachment through there. It's now renaming the attachment and deleting from the inbox. If I refresh that, we should have the thing with the, it's gone quickly into the, let's try now. Oh no, it's already converted it. So it would have changed it to the name and then put it in there. So all done very nicely. So if we look at the latest one, it's now formatted into the process that we need. We've now got that midnight column. We've now got the date column in the right format. This is the second thing I want to talk about. If we go into look at the Excel of, this is today's one through here. So if I go and look at my read date through here, and I look at my short date, this one comes in on the 19th. So today is the 19th, and this one says the 17th. So how come that? So again, going back to the electricity prices, this is today's stuff here. So this is actually happening on the 19th. They don't firm up the prices and give the final prices until the next day. So this is information from the 18th, as it is. I think this is the day before. It's quite a slow one. But this is what we'll actually have the data in the 18th. So they then send that off to the retailer, and they are giving the date before, the 17th. So the latest one that I've got is 2 days from today. Anyway, when we come through. So here's the thing. When I do this conversion, I said to old Bing Baby, I said, hey, do me a conversion write me a script, and it wrote me a script through here somewhere. Write me a script, and I might actually just put that through there, out to. Write me a script that will take the 1900 and then count the number of days. I can give you the number of days after that, and then give me the result in what today's date is. So it says it gets the result and converts it into date format. So if I just run that one there, out to, and if I run that there, run, date time is not defined. Let's just copy and bang that up there. Sorry about that, mate. V. So when I do this one here, so no, what we'll actually do is we'll go into our Excel file and we get our latest date. So I'm just going to undo that one, and I'm going to get, so this is supposed to be today's one, and this is the number that I've got through here, V. Oops. Then I go down, and then if I run that one through there, you'll see it gives me the 19th of the 6th. My result through there for that, copy, hash, V. Oops, it's not doing it there. But it why isn't it copying? Copy, V, is the 19th of the 6th, which is today, which is not, if I go into Excel and I take that number there and I turn that into a date, you see it's the 17th of the 6th. So I've got 2 days difference. Why? So let's just go back into here. So I said to Bing, hey, Bing baby, this is wrong. So I'm just going to go in there and paste that latest one that I had into there, which was that one there. Down. So I said, Bing, why is this happening? This happens in Excel and this happens in Python. It's giving me different dates. The Python script calculates a date as June the 16th. So this is the one, I've done it because I'd use this number 450991 through there. It's June the 16th, while Excel calculates it as June the 14th. So that's 2 days difference. This discrepancy is due to the fact that Excel incorrectly assumes that the year 1900 is a leap year. This means that when you add 45091 days to January the 1st, 1900, you get June the 14th. However, when you do the same calculation using the datetime module in Python, which correctly handles the leap years, you get June the 16th. But I can't see that. If it's a leap year, it's only 1 day's difference. But so I think Bing Crosby's got a bit confused by this one. So therefore, we've got to modify it slightly. So therefore, we've got to run this one through here. So if I now run this script here and go -2, you'll see now I get the 17th of the 6th, 2023. So once I've got that as that, I then suddenly say, well, okay, Bing dude, give me that as a lambda function. So it then, where's my lambda function? Gave me this lambda function that I could use, because this function works if you're just running a runoff. You'd actually just find a variable for what the date is and do it. But if you're doing it in a data frame, you really want a lambda function that you can just plug in, so it just goes down through each row on that particular column and does that conversion as to what you want. So in that one, instead of the X days, you've got to do the days is equal to X minus 2. So it takes the lambda X of that particular column and goes through and calculates it. Boom. Beware of that. That did throw me out, so I ended up having to go into my database. So that was the first part of the thing, and then the second part is I actually just take that converted file and I just push it up. I run this script, which will actually just uses SQLAlchemy and goes and pushes it up into my database. So each day it will update it with the latest one that I've actually got through there. So that one's going. It's got the right number of columns and it's got the right information in each column, so that it does the thing. In these scripts, for both of them, I've ended up using the .env to actually make a .env file, which actually has all of my passwords and all of those things in there. So all my sensitive stuff isn't in here. That's the whole automation as to what it does. So now I can leave this completely hand-free. So on that, well, the next part of the story with that is that I've now got a schedule so that my email comes in at 10 o'clock each day. At 10:20, this triggers the first script to actually detach. The email comes in inside of my Outlook.Live. It's forwarding the email at 10 o'clock through to my Gmail. But there's a little bit of a lag in there, so it can take maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. So just to be on the cautious side, I've just said 20 minutes later is when I actually go and find that file in my Gmail account, and then I detach the attachment and then do all of the processing. And then at 10:30, I then run the second script, which is pushing it up into the SQL database through here. So it's now in the database, and I've got the latest date through here, which is the 17th. So that's happened this morning at 10 o'clock. I tested it out this morning and it worked perfectly. And so I've now got all of those things in there. And after it's actually uploaded that into the after it's gone through the first one of detaching it and modifying it through the CSV formatting so that I've got the file in the way that I want it, the second one uploads it. So it goes through and uploads, and after it uploads it, it sends me an email to confirm that that has actually happened. So I then get an email, and the recipient is Manu. So let's just go and have a look at Manu. And so inside Manu, I should have one. No, this starts at 12, so I've deleted it by the look of it. So I better check on that. I think I've lost a few things on that one. I can't find it. I'll need to go and check that. But there would be a confirmation email that that has occurred. So how does that work? So we know that this has to generate, it has to get the attachment from my Gmail account. It has to generate this file. If this file isn't generated, I then can't, if I try and run this file here, so this is the one where I'm trying to upload it to SQL. If this file doesn't exist, this one here, which is the one of today's date with a single row on it, then this will break. So if that breaks, it doesn't send me an email. So I know when I get the confirmation email that both those two scripts have actually run and that that data is inside my database. So once I've actually got it inside the database, I can then go to the next one of actually going into Google Data Studio, or Looker I think as it's called at the moment, and start displaying my information and doing some stuff with it. So here you can see these are two. This is from the 5th of October, and this is going through to now. You can see suddenly I used a massive amount. Normally I'm in the kind of 15 things. I've got these drop-offs where there's almost nothing happening. Those are 2 times when I went away, so I wasn't here and I just turned all the power off, so there's very little power off. And these ones here, it's coming in as less than 10. So starting to change my behavior as to how I'm using the power means that I'm dropping down. But there are points here where I'm using a lot, and this was a particular time when the charges for it were minimal. The reservoirs were so full they were not giving it away. So 2 weeks ago it was very, very cheap. Now it isn't. So suddenly I ended up with a very high usage because I just put in a lot of heating through there. So I used 41.7 units instead of my 10 or 15 units that I'm normally having through here. So I can now start doing some other analysis on that, and I can actually create some dashboards inside Google thing, just reading off using the data from the database. Now, from the point of view of all of that, in some ways, I could have just detached that information, so do the detachment of some way, and then add it to an Excel, and then inside of Excel, making a dashboard. But I'm not that keen on Excel with large data sets. This data set's not that great at this point in time. It's only got 980, so it's less than 1,000 lines of information at this point in time. But over time, it's going to accrue an awful lot more, and then I find Excel can be quite sluggish. So that's why I'm using databases and things like that. So in some ways, this has ended up being a lot more complicated than what it needed to be, because I was starting off with my email in my Outlook or Hotmail, and I needed to have it inside of Gmail to be able to do those Pythonic scripts with it, so programmatically doing things. So this is another thing, like for using, so this is why to a certain extent I prefer the programming. If I was using Power Automate, I would actually have to pay so that I could get an app. So where am I? So if I'm in here, if I was using Power Automate, I would have actually had to get a premium app or connector. So I'd actually have to go into the connectors through here, and I would have to pay for a specific connector. Now, if you've got a paid account on here, such that you're inside an office that actually has these, you've got a 365 account or whatever, you would actually be able to get these connectors. I don't. But, why pay for something when you can do it for free? Now, it ends up being a little bit more convoluted than what it needs to be in some ways. But I tried different methodologies to actually get things to work. And I'm pleased with the result, is that the whole thing is totally automated. I thought that maybe I would actually have to come in here and just forward an email when it came in. And now I can actually do it, and it automatically does it. So it's using slightly different things. It's using the Outlook Online. So if that email had come in a different email context, I'd most probably have to try and look at connecting to that email server in a different manner. But as it is, it was something that I could do, and it's thing, because the two most common ones are your Gmail accounts and your Outlook accounts, really, that you can get for free ones and stuff. So I didn't want to go into here and suddenly find if there's an app password that I can use inside of that. If there is, most probably because it's Microsoft, they'll sting you for it somewhere or another. So a totally automated process from woe to go. I'll post the I'll give a link to just how to actually set up an app password so that you can use it with scripts. I have given one before. This is the link of where I was doing with the adding an attachment and sending it by email. And I think that now the other way round of actually having the attachment and being able to detach it and use it, that's really the whole story. So now I've actually done the both steps of this. So this has been quite a pleasing sort of a process. The interesting one is, I think the data coming through is in, it seems that a lot of the people for the meter reading and stuff are all sending information via at this point in time, I'm wondering whether they're actually sending it via Excel. So everybody's actually doing a lot of their processing via Excel, which could be quite heavy, but you're suddenly thinking maybe they would actually go to a more sophisticated automation. But they may actually be taking it from a database and actually just downloading it into Excel, and that's just how it actually comes out. So that's just an inference that I'm making there. But I'm very, very pleased with what I was doing. And you know, from the point of view of the Power Automate that's trying to push things up to your OneDrive or trying to push things to Dropbox or G Drive or something like that, I find they're useful places to have, but I'd actually prefer to actually have my resources where I can use them. That's why I actually have a network attached storage myself, so it's actually more local that I can use it, and then I use those cloud storages for when I need those other automations. So I'll put the code for these two processes through there. I won't have the passwords or where I'm actually pushing it through, but you've got the flow of what's actually happening. The one that actually failed for me at this point in time was right at the very end. I was trying to use the SHUTIL to then take these older files from 2 days below and put them into a subdirectory, and that kept on. You couldn't find the subdirectory or something, so I was a bit intrigued by that. In the end, I just took it out, so it wasn't really an issue. So I've remmed that out at that point in time. I've also so overall, all of that's actually been concatenated. So that's doing about 3 or 4 steps through there, and I'm using my normal process through here of trying to use date time and yesterday and adjusting the dates so that I've actually got a date on front of my files, either front or the back, just so that I can use them for great sorting, so that you can quickly identify files of a specific date to get what you want. I find it a very useful method to do. So this is an example. It's really for something that's coming into my email address, but you may find it of use later. And I've also got just between this one step and another one, so after it does the attachments and detaches the attachment into the folder, I just pause at that point in time, and then I start the next step. So I've got a 5-second pause between each steps, just to make sure that it doesn't sort of try and run into the next one without completing the first task anyway. So thank you very much for watching. If you found that useful, please give a thumbs up. Thank you.